Okay. Well, I'm Graham Back from the town of, or near the town of Dalby. We're farmers out there. My wife Denise and I, we raised 3 children, and our 3 daughters are all married and living in the area around Dalby. 2 of them are farming, like myself. 2 of my son-in-laws are. My daughters are married farmers there. And we're 25 kilometres west of Dalby. Been there all my life, as I said before, and so I'm in my early 60s, and I guess I have a passion for where I am because I guess that's where I believe God's placed me, and we're a committed Christian family, and we've had a lot of changes though in our lives. I've come from a background of where we grew up using chemicals a lot, and of course that then sort of moved on in later years to include genetic modification as well. And because my dad had 5 sons, we all wanted to be farmers, and there wasn't enough room on the farm for us all, so we were encouraged by government, and we were also found ourselves landlocked. We only had a certain amount of land, and we developed irrigation early in the piece. And anyway, there's 3 of us still farming now, and we moved into cotton, irrigated cotton. Well, first of all we grew grain, and then we went into irrigated cotton. And then as time went on, a lot of you probably understand that cotton has sort of gone to genetic modification. And I suppose in some ways that's a good thing. Even Drew probably would understand that we used to use a lot of chemicals, and now they don't use as much chemicals. But we became, or when I say we, my wife and I became very disillusioned with that a bit over 12 years ago now. We started down the road of growing cotton with, genetic modification, only to find that it was at odds with what we were beginning to believe about the technology, because I think you've probably heard the term GMO, genetic modification, or genetically modified organisms. Well, my wife and I believe that that's really God move over. It wasn't created to be genetically modified. None of our organisms should be done that way, we believe. It's man tampering with things that he shouldn't touch. It's going to be dangerous. It's going to be destructive, for mankind. And so we moved away from that, and we thought about our options, and we thought, well, we'll go into conventional grain, will we? When I say conventional, that's grain that is grown still with chemicals, but and not organic, But then we realised, oh no, they're adopting genetic modification all around the world, America and Canada in particular, and some other countries in the world too were adopting it. And we thought, no, and as Christians we prayed about it a lot, and we believed that as we researched it, organic was the only way we could go. So hence we're organic farmers. Yay! As of 12 years ago. But things have happened since then, of course. We've got a gas industry knocking on our doors, governments allowing them to do so. And we sit on top of a underground water aquifer called the Condamine Alluvium. It's an underground sub-artesian water system that is the largest in Queensland. I'm pretty sure when I say that, that's right. It's not huge by comparison to the New South Wales ones. And by the way, they want to do it down there too. How ludicrous. They want to destroy all that water too, or happy to anyway at least. But we believe that it's going to drain the whole system. It's going to, they're sucking a lot of the water out from underneath the Condamine Alluvium, which is the Walloons, is that right, Drew? Yeah, and it's a well-known fact. Even David Free Toowoomba from the Water Resources there, the government department, he knows very well that it's interconnected in places where the water can actually make its way down from the Condamine alluvium straight down into the coal balloons. And of course they need to take all that water out in order to release the gas. They can't release the gas without taking all the water out. I think a lot of you probably know this already, but that's a lot of the problem. It's the extraction of the large quantities of water that is going to, so that they can get the gas out, that's going to lower that, the coal balloons down, the area where they're getting the gas from, hence creating, I guess, a vacuum in a way for the water to come down from the Condamine alluvium straight down into that area, and we're going to lose the whole thing. Now, it may take 20 or 30 years. I don't know what you think, Drew, but it might only take 10 years. I don't know. How long's a piece of string? I don't know. But how sad that is. It's been over-allocated in the first place, this Condamine alluvium. Government allowed too much licence to be handed out. And here I am, an irrigator, saying that there's too much licences handed out. But it is a fact. And but we need to at least rein that in and only use what the system is capable of recharging at in its natural forms, you know. And it can recharge. And it's a wonderful place to store water, but it's so sad if we ever lose it right down into the lower levels, because it'll be non-retrievable there. It won't be good quality water anymore because it's very salty down there, lots of chemicals in all that water down there naturally, because it's from a, what would you call it, a volcanic sort of an origin? That'd be about right, I think. So it's not usable. So we will have lost it once we lose it, and Dalby relies 90% on the Condamine alluvium for its water. Pittsworth, Millmerran, whole host of towns. And so it destroys the whole system, you know. So we don't believe that that's good at all. It's certainly not good as far as I'm concerned as a Christian. So I can't live with that. And so, hence, you see the lock the gate sign there? And we mean business. We're serious about it. Yeah. Let's move on to the next picture. We haven't got a perfect system, but we're doing our best as farmers, and that's our main agricultural tractor. And I don't mean to skite here in any shape or form. We are in a very mechanised era. We seem to need to be that way to be economic in our farming today. Hence we have to have big equipment. Not like a young man that, actually a young man, I'll just tell you a little story. We've got a young man, his name is Chandra, and he comes from Sri Lanka. Virtually his whole family were killed. He was part of the Tamil community, and we've actually adopted him as him and his wife as a son and daughter. They've only come to our farm 2 months ago, and some missionary friends of ours put us in contact with him. And it's amazing. He's almost like a son to me now. Just in 2 months, and he hasn't got a work visa yet, so he can't actually work here. And so I told him you're only supposed to do 25 hours a week for food and for lodging. I can't stop him. What do you do? But his whole family were virtually killed because they were a minority group back in Sri Lanka, and because they were Christians, the Sinhalese government, which is a different group of people, they just hate them, you know, and they drove them off their farm. They basically stole their farm off them. His dad was a rice farmer, 10 hectares he had, and he used to plough, not with a tractor like this, with oxen, with a handheld plough behind him, you know. So, yeah, I've lost my train of thought a bit, but anyway, Chandran has come to be with us now, and yeah, it's so different, isn't it, to what we're used to in this very materialistic world we live in here in Australia and America and England. We're all like it, the Western world. Next picture, that's a tractor we use on our organic farm. We drop the outside dual wheels off, and we use the inner wheels for inter-row cultivating to control our weeds. We grow soya beans, and we grow popcorn. We also grow wheat, and since the big flood came over, I've had to inter-row cultivate my wheat because we've got a lot of weeds come through in the floodwaters, but we're bringing them right down to nothing again. I do actually operate a no weed policy on the farm, so we get every weed we possibly can. I don't have any wild oats on the farm, and any weeds, as I say, that have come in, we knock them out as much as we possibly can. So I'll move on, and that's a header that I've just invested in recently, and we've got a little ways to another year or so to pay it off yet properly. But that's a 10-year-old machine, but it's the best header I've ever had, so God's been good to us. That's a special bean front on the front there, and that's specially designed for harvesting soybeans, and I harvest my popcorn with that as well. That's organic popcorn, by the way, and organic soybeans. We're one of the growers for Vitasoy Australia. Now the next picture, that's what we plant the crop with, that one there, and we plant 12 rows at a time, so it's 30 foot wide or 9 metres on the metric. And that says it all too, the back of the bike, eh? You know, yeah, we can't eat these things. We can't drink gas, and we can't eat coal, eh? It's just not sustainable actually in the long run, and I needed to adopt solar more than I have. I'm coming to believe more and more in solar power, because I can see the destructive force that, you know, these other dirty industries have on our food production. Little lamb production. You can see here the alpacas. They protect the flock from the dogs. We've been having trouble with wild dogs. A lot of people seem to have these pig dogs these days, and a lot of them are going feral and killing our sheep. So just about everyone with sheep in the country is losing sheep, you know. We've also got a donkey as well. Now, some of you might not agree with our irrigation, but we have an irrigation ring tank. We do have a licence to flood harvest out of the Condamine River. So that's our pumps. And I'll be upfront with you there that we do irrigate, and I started out to say that there's 5 of us children, and we intensified the farm by going into irrigation. The government came to us years ago and said, and I'm talking back in the early 70s, they said there's no good storage places where we can build dams, apart from Leslie Dam, and they encouraged us a lot to build ring tanks on the farm, and they issued us with licences to irrigate with. That's our irrigation ring tank, and we water ski on that. Actually, I love my water skiing. I've got a 1978 Haynes Thunder boat, and I love my water skiing. And that's the type of irrigation we have. That's actually irrigated wheat. We've been hydro-cultivating that the last few years since the big floods. But next year I'm going back to doing it broadacre. We can control the weeds by just hand pulling the weeds again. So we've got to rein those weeds back in again. It's got to be economic. I know of organic farmers that went into organics only to go back out of it because the weeds beat them. And so there's the donkey too. He does his job in helping to protect the flock as well. And as you can see, I've got Dorper sheep. That's a breed called Dorper sheep. They're actually a woolless sheep because it's not economic to grow wool anymore. And there's the type of irrigation we have, the siphon hoses. And I am looking at irrigation in better ways in the future. In fact, I've even wondered whether to go into trees, actually, maybe in the long term, but it mightn't be me, it might be the next person. But even on a more, I'm just trying to think what they call it now, permaculture type setup, and trickle irrigation, you could use the water a lot more efficiently than this. Spray irrigation is better, but it's very costly too, and uses a lot of diesel, which is not good, or electricity. So there's fors and against with all these things. And that's just a volunteer crop that we're grazing to the sheep. That was actually soybeans, actually, just volunteer, and we just graze that a little bit. Sometimes we plough it in, sometimes if we don't need the feed. So we do grow some green manure crops. That's my grain storages on the farm. We store our grain, and we to use those for storage on farm until we send it away. And I think that might be it. Thumbs up, I guess. Thank you very much. Probably over anyway.